Now, more stories, insights, and analysis of Illinois policy and politics. This is Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Policy Institute. Once again, your host, AM 560's Dan Proft.
Dan Proft back with Ted Dabrowski, Vice President of Policy at the Illinois Policy Institute. And Ted, we saw during the run-up to the budget deal, kind of the temporary deal, to extend out financing of state government to the end of the year, that colleges, state colleges, universities in Illinois were crying poor, talking about having to lay off staff, some even threatening that they may have to close their doors if the state didn't arrive with the requested funding, schools like Chicago State making that claim. But it turns out if you dig into the numbers, you find some things that are a bit troubling about how we do financing of state universities and colleges in Illinois, where we are providing twice as much per student as compared to their conference peers, relative colleges and universities, so Illinois as compared to Big Ten peers, for example. And yet tuition at our state schools is at the same time between 20 and 40% higher than their conference peers. So how do we square the circle?
Well, you know, it becomes pretty obvious once you get into the numbers. But before that, you think, hey, the state is providing more aid for education, so it should be cheaper for Illinois students. But it's not. And the reason why is these universities are taking all this money, hiring more and more staff. The administrative staff at colleges, not just in Illinois, but across the country, it's just ballooned. And with that, their pay has been higher and higher. Their pensions have been crazy. And so therefore, the more money that's put into the system, it's raising the cost of the system. So what's left is higher tuitions that kids have to pay. So it's just unfair.
So, for example, according to the Illinois Board of Higher Education, more than half of Illinois' 2,465 university administrators have a base salary north of $100,000. And, you want everybody to maximize their earnings. I don't begrudge people maximizing their earnings, but at the same time, it's the conversation we always have. It's what can we actually afford? What is respectful to the job that we're seeking to have someone do? And what can we finance both on the base salary side, plus, as you're indicating, all the added benefits?
Well, I think the other thing we have to look at is what are we funding? If we fund more and more administrators, and we saw Chicago State, actually, we found that Chicago State almost had the same number of administrators as it did faculty. So that's just way too much administration. The other thing is funding are programs that maybe don't deserve to exist. Some programs that only have 6 or 7 people in the program itself. And so what's happened is we've ballooned it, and then we've priced it out so kids can't afford it. And I think that's the unfair thing.
Well, in Chicago State, I mean, we've talked about this on my morning show as well. Chicago State, 2009 to 2015, 6 years, 11% graduation rate. 11% over 6 years, $2.5 million per year per graduate from Chicago State. And most of that money comes from the state of Illinois. That doesn't seem like a great rate of return or a great return on the investment we're making in higher education. If you're not going to educate children, why are we pouring more money into the system? If you're going to just featherbed administrative bureaucracy, then why are we providing more money into the system? I mean, something I've suggested previously, be interested in your reaction, is look, the message the governor and the General Assembly could give to state colleges and universities is, here's the deal. Going back to those peer comparisons, conference peer comparisons, you can either bring your tuition down to the median of your conference peers, or we're going to bring the state support down to the median of your conference peers. You choose. But one way or the other, we're going to stop this. We're giving you twice as much, and you're fleecing Illinois families as compared to what other states are doing with their state colleges and universities at the same time.
Well, it's not a bad idea, Dan. It's got to change. You can't have a situation where the state's going bankrupt, it's spending more and more money on higher education, and at the same time, tuitions keep going up. And I think you're starting to see the change. What was interesting this past week was that you're seeing schools showing that their enrollments are going down. And, it becomes pretty obvious to somebody who's living on the border, who's looking at Iowa, or somebody who wants to look at a nearby school, Indiana, says, wow, wait a minute, it's cheaper. I don't have to worry about this funding stuff. it's just I get a better deal.
Well, and the other thing that's happening too, just that's driving that, is and Illinois exports more of its college-bound high school seniors than any state in the nation except New Jersey. Why is that? Because this is not a place that has economic opportunities. So if you don't have job opportunities for kids that are looking at where they're going to launch their career after college, then, going to school at a reduced comparative cost in Tennessee or South Carolina or Texas or Indiana or Iowa or Missouri or Wisconsin starts to look a lot more attractive. And so kids go away to college, and they're not coming back to a state that doesn't have job opportunities in their chosen field of endeavor.
Well, I think what politicians are starting to figure out is that Illinoisans can do math.
Yeah,
right? They're not stupid, and you can only treat them in a bad way for a certain amount of time. The same thing for administrators. They got to change the way they do things. Otherwise, people will vote with their feet, and that's what they're doing, whether it's leaving Illinois to find job opportunities or leaving Illinois to go for college.
One other thing that you've written about in terms of the pension side of this is there is a group of academics in higher ed that actually have reformed pensions in a sense. Talk about these 17,000 or so odd university employees that have that do their pensions differently than the rest.
Yeah, so back in 1998, there was an idea, and it was a good idea, and unfortunately has been rolled out more, but there was an idea to provide professors not to give them a choice of whether they wanted the traditional pension or a 401k style plan like everybody else in the private sector has. And we've seen that since then, every year 15 to 20% of new workers that come into the state university retirement system or to education, they're taking the 401k style plan. And that's a much better plan for them because it's not broke, and it's a much better plan for the university system because it's much more affordable, predictable, and manageable. And so we need to see more of that happen, not just the university system, but across Illinois pensions.